What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to the 817 podcast, where we talk about the lovely city of Fort Worth, Texas. We get into politics, business, culture, news. If it impacts you as a Fort Worthian, we discuss it. We give you one big story, 3 short stories, wins, losses, and actions. My name is AG Paxton. I'm with my co-host Ann Zeta, our producer Wesley Kirk. And what we have today is a great opportunity to talk to Patrice Jones, who is a activist, a organizer, and the founder of Southside Community Gardens. But today we're talking about because an incident that happened last week during us fighting for free speech and to maintain public comments in our city. And boy, did it turn into a different direction. Patrice, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, EJ.
It's about time, right?
I mean, for real.
She's been too famous to have. I've been trying to get her on, and she's like, oh.
Don't do that. That has not been what has been occurring. I actually was taking a break from my mental health. So
yeah.
That's always a good thing to do.
Yes. So thank you, Ann, for having me on.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wesley. So I'm really excited to be here. I was taking a break from my mental health. I've been going pretty hard since 2020. So the beginning of this year, I was just kind of chilling out, but I'm so happy to be back in the fight. It's in me, and just looking forward to continuing to, to speak this truth to power. So I'm excited about this episode and whatever we can discuss to help move forward, hopefully.
So we normally start off our interviews on the podcast with asking people what their Fort Worth story is. And I know you have a long and storied Fort Worth story, but I know that some of that is work that you've been doing for a long time in the community, not just news, things that have come up more recently.
Yes.
If you would share with us, what is your Fort Worth story?
I would love to share my Fort Worth story. So I'm born and raised in Fort Worth. I'm not a county hospital baby. I was born at Baylor All Saints. So my mom actually graduated from Trimble Tech High School, class of 75. My dad was one of the first black students to integrate Sunrise Elementary over in Eastwood. My grandmother lived downtown in the Ripley Arnold projects for about 30 years before they were torn down and Radio Shack was built. My other grandmother lived in Woodhaven, but she was one of the first black nurses at St. Joseph Hospital. I'm Fort Worth through and through. I didn't graduate or attend school in Fort Worth, but I was born here, and I have strong family Fort Worth ties, as well as I grew up in Hearst, not that far around the corner. So I did go to LD Bell, so I started our step team. So I've always been kind of an outspoken person. Back then, I'm old. Back then we only had one black cheerleader at LD Bell in Hearst. So me and my friends, we wanted to give black and brown girls a space to be able to express themselves. So a lot of black schools, predominantly black schools, had step teams. So we started a step team back in 2001. Shout out to the LD Bell Steppers.
By the way, that was also just a good time for music. And like 2001 music style, like, I mean, it's just so, I could go an array of different stuff. So.
Oh, yeah. And we had a wonderful principal by the name of Nathaniel Hearn.
Yeah.
Who, he's actually like a legend. He was like I believe the coach or principal behind Friday Night Lights. I didn't know that at the time when I was in school, but finding that out later. So yeah, that's my Fort Worth, the little roots. I moved to Kentucky and went to school for half a semester, and I missed Fort Worth too bad and came back. I have done a bunch of jobs. So I've been a catastrophe insurance adjuster. I worked at Wells Fargo for about 6 years. I actually was Miss Opal Lee's personal banker. I worked on the South Side. So it was full circle. My family's from the East Side, but I had a great relationship with Miss Opal way before, she made Juneteenth. Before she was the famous Dr. Opal Lee. So definitely know her. I remember going to her house for New Year's, eating chitlins when I used to eat those. So definitely know Miss Opal, and shout out to Miss Opal, man. I hope she's doing well. Love her. So I'm going to hop in just how activism started. So that's a little of the Fort Worth story. But I was just minding my business like everybody else. And, the George Floyd situation occurred. That was right after the Tatiana Jefferson murder that happened by Aaron Dean. So I remember I arrived in Puerto Rico October 12, 2019, and I was on the plane, and it came across CNN that Fort Worth PD had murdered somebody. My first thought, I hope it wasn't a black person. I literally was like, I hope it wasn't. Now, most of the time when there's a police killing, a lot of times it's a black male. I was flabbergasted to find out it was a black woman and the fact that she was in her home. So, and the fact that it was based on a non-emergency phone call that Mr. James Smith made just doing a welfare check, and that resulted in Tatiana being murdered within about 45 seconds of Aaron Dean arriving at the scene. Yeah. So when George Floyd happened, I remember going out. That was around COVID. Everybody was bored. We needed something to do. So we was, I'm not going to say that's why we went, but the numbers were extremely large. And I believe it was based on just where we were as a country with COVID. So I'm out there protesting, and naturally I'm 5'10", so I'm tall. I'm very outspoken. I have a loud voice. I was really thrown into the leadership role at that protest. So I was leading the chants, and I would always say her name. And everyone would say, Sandra Bland, she was killed in 2015. They would say Breonna Taylor. And I noticed that no one would say Tatiana Jefferson. I'm like, we are right here in Fort Worth, Texas. This is May of 2020. So that's 6-7 months after Tatiana was murdered, and no one even knows her name. Mm-hmm.
So I do want to add a correction. I don't think you were thrown into leadership. I was there. We were there the first day when there was like a dozen people, and you were so fed up with the people who were leading those protests, letting the police dictate where they could go and what they could say, and you changed the energy and you made it way more proactive and energetic, and then that's why people started showing up.
You're right, Wesley, because they had... I'm going to be frank. They had clowns leading this protest, literally having us protest down empty streets.
Where the cops told us to go.
Where the cops told us to go. Mm-hmm. No storefronts. Like, the purpose of a protest is to disturb the peace. Yes. So I literally was like, we're not really making any impact. I'm looking at all the cities around the world and what they're doing. I'm like, hey, we're the 12th largest city at the time. Mm-hmm. Like, how can we really make them hear us and why we're out here? So I had the bright idea to take the protest from the empty streets of downtown to West 7th. And that's when all hell broke loose. Yes. Literally. The day that we went to protest and crossed that bridge. So that's when the tear gas, the mace, that's when everything happened. Yeah. Around that time. Thank you, Wesley, because you were there. Credit where credit is due. Yes. So... yeah, so during that time,
and this is all in your first kind of activism, doing all that part.
This is hilarious. I've always been a Facebook activist. Yeah.
Keyboard warrior.
I've always had Twitter. I'm pretty quick with it, so I've always done that. This is the first opportunity where that was my first time really being in Fort Worth. Well, no, I got to go back. So I actually lived in Dallas at the time when Jackie Craig was assaulted. She made a call about her neighbor harassing her child, and her child ended up brutalized, thrown on the ground. And that was so I came out. I remember Dominique Alexander and a lot of others came, and we were making noise. I came out during one of those instances. I actually have a live video of it. So, it was periodic. It wasn't, I was working. I had a full-time job. It wasn't my job, but as a, concerned community person. So then, that was the first time I was really out there every day. I'm talking about, I had to buy some new tennis shoes. We was walking so much during those times. That was a time. But I didn't realize what was happening while I was leading these protests. At that time, I wasn't known. I didn't even live in Fort Worth. I lived in Arlington. So it's not like I know what was happening. I was literally being recorded. They were trying to figure out who I was. And
she's not from here.
I'm not. But they didn't realize. But I didn't grow up here, so they're thinking I wasn't from here. So they around that time, I remember Betsy Price. She called all of the leaders in for the protest, and it was me, Nice. It was a lot of us, and I believe what they were doing at that time was identifying who we were, because it was directly after that meeting that I was falsely arrested by Fort Worth PD. Yep. I have alopecia. I have 2 forms of alopecia. So I have traction alopecia and I have CCCA. So hair is a struggle. So purposefully, they arrested me, made me take my wig off, and put my mugshot on the news, in which I was looking like a crazed, angry black woman, and they put my mugshot on the news for 6 days in a row.
Wow.
Now, we'll go back to the arrest. You would have thought that I was Ashada Shakur, R.I.P.
Yes.
to that beautiful freedom fighter. You would have thought that I was Ashada Shakur. Real quick, I have to throw this in. I need everyone to go get this autobiography. It is life-changing, and I just want all of y'all to go read it. They came about 10 deep, Fort Worth PD, to my
in
home.
Arlington. I remember you telling this story, and I'm like, how do they have the jurisdiction?
Came out of their jurisdiction to arrest me for a misdemeanor criminal mischief charge.
Because a table at Shake Shack got messed up or some bullshit. Yeah.
They said that a table was, now mind you, we're there, and I remember those guys. Remember the big white guys that had the legal observers like half tops on? I remember they were like beating the trays up against the table. Now we're in there to disturb the peace, but I remember going and telling them they had hit it so hard against the table. I was like, hey, you done bent the trays. I was like, give me those trays, like, because I'm trying to protect them. I don't want them to get in trouble. As a leader, I get the trays and throw them away outside. So Fort Worth PD arrested me for criminal mischief, and then they sent me a ticket in the mail. This is so petty, for theft. They said
for the trays.
For two $7 trays.
Okay, but so this was your activism on the streets in 2020, but then what did that lead you to? You want to talk about Southside Community Garden?
Yes. So what that led me to, so again, I'll go back to the protesting. When I said, we're out there protesting, nobody knows Tatiana Jefferson's name. I'm like, okay, this lady is killed right here down the street. I want to help people know who she is and learn her name, especially in the city in which she was murdered. So I decided that I was going to have a mural put up in Fort Worth for her. So I went to, it was at the time called the Southside Community Center, which was right behind her house, reached out to the city, trying to see if they would grant me permission to have a mural put on the Hillside Community Center. And it's so full circle because I was a part of the efforts to have that renamed. So now it's called the Hillside at Tatiana. So you didn't want a mural on it, but however, now it's named after her. How ironic. Clock it. So I was going around looking at buildings. I wanted to be on the South Side. And mind you, I'm really from Hearst, but I'm gonna claim East Side all day. So I'm driving around looking at different buildings. So I call Miss Opal. I'm like, hey, Miss Opal, I want to do a mural for Tatiana Jefferson. Do you know anybody that owns any buildings in the historic South Side? So she sent me to the building that's diagonal from where the mural actually is now. It was a game room. I don't even know if it's still a game room. And she was like, yeah, this is so-and-so. It's open to everybody. So I looked at the building. It was small. And no, I want a bigger mural. That's not enough. That's not an impact enough. So I said, Miss Opal, who owns this building? Category, it's like a category from there. She said, that's Bill Hatley. That's Irma Jean Hatley. She passed away, but that was her husband. So I make a Facebook video. I go live and I'm like, hey y'all, can somebody get me in contact with Bill Hatley? I want to see. And she told me he was a black man. So I'm like, well, he's a black man. Hopefully he'll let me do this mural. I'm like, can you get me in contact with him? So one of my Facebook friends got me in contact with Bill Hatley. I went, me, Sarah Russell, I don't want to leave nobody out. It was so many of us. Like, it was so many phenomenal people. CC, Nice CC, Kwame, Enough is Enough for a Word. It's coming to me, y'all. So I was like, y'all, we're going to do a mural on this building. Mr. Hadley showed us the building. He said, yeah, that'll be fine. So then we needed an artist because I just be having ideas, but how we got to make this happen. So I was like, I got to find an artist to do this mural. So I made a Facebook post and I was like, I wanted a black artist. And Julian Johnson, it was going to be his first mural. We went to the paint store. He picked out all the paint. And he did a mural. He did a great job. And there was other artists that came out and assisted with all of that.
Well, because it happened in a very tight timeline. Like, you had the idea like on a Friday, and then you were going to have a party on Sunday to open up the mural. And this guy, because it was his first mural, he was so over his head. He was sketching out. He was there
very overwhelmed
all day and night. But the community wanted this to happen so bad. Everyone was out there adding their own little thing.
So it happened in 5 days. I found the space, got permission from the owner, got permission from the Tatiana's family, set up a GoFundMe, found artists. Now, mind you, this was really a big deal. It was another Carlos. He was from the South Side, I believe. He's a big deal now too. He drove by and was like, "What's going on?" So we told him. So it was probably about 6 or 7 artists. Even my mom's childhood best friend, my Aunt Myra, was one of the artists that came out. So it was about 6 or 7 artists that really made this possible. So again, it was Julian's first mural, but it was like such a collaborative community effort.
It was fun because like Tatiana's family was there, and everyone was asking her like, "What did she like? Like, what was her favorite anime? I'll paint that." She liked math.
She was into.
So remember, so they were her and Zion were playing the game. So it's a game controller on the mural. You'll notice she was in school to be a doctor. It's a DNA strip. I wanted it very inclusive. So she liked anime. So I talked to Zaya and I'm like, what was her favorite anime character? And I think it was like Naruto. Yep. And so we put Naruto up there. So very intentional, like to make this is in remembrance of her.
She was a whole person.
So she was a whole person. So we had people out there doing spoken word, like we had rappers, we had face painting for the kids.
It was a fun party.
Smokeaholics. Shout out to them. Always go support Smokeaholics. They provided free food. Like we had people just really coming together, and we had about 500 people at that mural celebration when we first revealed it for Tatiana Jefferson. So,
and that was all after you being inspired of when people were to say their name and they weren't saying Tatiana's name.
So we started protesting in May of 2025, and the mural date was July 15th.
And now we look at just the wave of how we do know who Tatiana Jefferson is.
Yeah.
And the country knows who Tatiana Jefferson is.
So, if Scott Gordon, he interviewed me day 2 of the protest, and I'll never forget. He was like, when we were, he asked me, he said, "So, do you think something like this could ever happen in Fort Worth?" I had a shirt on that said, "I'm sick of racist white people." And on the back of my shirt was hashtag Tatiana Jefferson. I literally turned around. I said, "What do you mean, do I think it could happen?" I said, "It already did." I turned around and showed him my shirt of Tatiana Jefferson. So literally like that. And I want to just take a step back. I really was adamant on spotlighting the Fort Worth PD and how they murdered a Tatiana Jefferson with no accountability after they falsely arrested me. So I probably wouldn't have even got that motivation had they not falsely arrested me.
Yeah.
So it takes certain things to fire me back up.
Yeah.
And what happened down at City Hall last Tuesday just fired me back up.
Yeah. What was that? Because you're right. You took like a mental health break. We all knew the legend of Patrice, who's done all this work, and you were staying pretty much like you were cheering on us. We get texts. You're like, "Yeah, I'm so proud of y'all. Like, keep it up."
I'm trying to motivate
all the contact we've had with the community garden stuff that you've been doing, because that's been something you've continued to do. That's
so
good for your mental health.
The gardening definitely. So I started. As we were preparing for that mural space, I noticed there was no grocery stores. Now, mind you, I grew up in HEB, so we got grocery stores everywhere. It's access and that type of thing when you live in nice neighborhoods. If we're being honest, but when you live in a lot of black and brown neighborhoods, and I want to be intentional. It's food apartheid, right? When we say a desert is something that's naturally occurring. What's happening in black and brown communities is intentional. They're intentionally removing our grocery stores and putting dollar stores, liquor stores, and on every corner, giving access to liquor, and even I think Dollar General, they sell like beer and wine, but they don't sell fresh vegetables. So you look at Family Dollar, Dollar General, Dollar Tree, they're all owned by the same people. So me as just a regular person, I'm like, hey, how can I help these people? So I decided to start a community garden. Well, I didn't have no land. I didn't have no money for irrigation systems, for fencing,
there might be some ordinances that make that challenging at the city of Fort Worth.
I'm just a random person. Like, I don't even know how to garden, but I'm like, hey, if this is a community they don't have access, how can I help? I found a study from UT Southwestern. Actually, Allison, the co-founder of Southside Community Garden, found a study. Shout out to Allison. Found a study from UT Southwestern that said 76104 had the lowest life expectancy since 2015. So I'm like, what's going on? Like, but you look, redlining is really a thing. So redlining is 76104 is located in the hospital district where all the hospitals are. But 35, as we know, the history of redlining was used to redline black and brown communities and not give them access that other communities have.
As you said, highways are major impacts to that kind of thing. And those intentional lines were drawn through redlining where they then identified neighborhoods that were undesirable and you couldn't get mortgages or any of that in order. And so that's how all of the good things have been sucked out of those neighborhoods, because there used to be economies there. There used to be businesses there. There were black businesses there.
Yep. Come on, speak on it, Ann. The South Side used to be known as the Black Wall Street of Fort Worth. Yep. So William Gooseneck McDonald, shout out to Leadership Fort Worth, he was the first black millionaire in Fort Worth, and he had there were several. You had the Brooks family who owned clinics, doctors. There's Langley Pharmacy. There was all type of rich. Martin Luther King, when he came to Fort Worth, he came and stayed with like the Baker family, the Baker Funeral Home family, which is right there on the South Side also. So he looked right over Dallas and came to Fort Worth. Now, if you look at the history and where Fort Worth is now, you wouldn't believe that, because you would think we'd be much more progressive, having the first black millionaire, all of that. But everything that has happened to the South Side has been intentional. Like everything was pulled, like Ann was saying.
So Southside Community Garden.
It started from me just being over in Southside. I want to remember a Tatiana. I didn't have resources for traditional community garden, so we had the idea like, okay, well, how about we put gardens at people's houses? Well, still to do that, you need some money. So Funky Town Fridge was just getting started.
Shout out to
I wanted to donate my refrigerator to her, and I did. And I went to Lowe's and bought a new refrigerator. So what Lowe's did is they double sold my refrigerator, and it never got delivered. So I'm going back and forth. So I bought a refrigerator and don't have it. I'm going back and forth with them, and I'm a black Karen when it comes to stuff like that. Let me speak to the manager. I'm going back and forth, and finally, one of the regional managers was like, "Hey, we're going to give you a $500 inconvenience for selling your refrigerator, and we'll have a new one delivered." I was like, no, you know what? You guys can do something better. I want to start a community initiative where I help the zip code with the lowest life expectancy. I turned that $500 gift card they were going to give me into a donation from Lowe's, which allowed us to build 15 gardens in people's yards of wood, lumber, everything. Then went back to the community again, and volunteers showed up and showed out and paid for it. We had soil, we had everything, and we built 15 gardens just with the help of Lowe's in the community. So the first year we built 25 gardens with Southside, and with no grant, we weren't even a nonprofit. We were nothing. We were just community people coming together, making it shake. Yeah. And second year we built 40. We currently have 80 home gardens. And Southside Community Garden is a health and wellness pillar under my actual nonprofit that's called By Any Means 104. We have another pillar, which is civic engagement. I really want to activate young black and brown people to get more involved, to vote, to be the change they want to see. We're always talking about on Facebook what needs to change, so I want people to get active, do civics one-on-one. Let's start at the bottom, like what y'all are doing. That's why this podcast is so important. I am just thankful that y'all put this together. This is really needed, and just build off of this and educate people, because what you don't, you know what I'm saying, when you know better, you do better. A lot of people don't know.
I think when we first started out, we were mainly just telling stories, and the adding the action piece has been because of following the lead of people like you and the organizations that you're doing, and people coming to us and saying, you're telling us these stories and they're really important, but we want to know what to do. And you know, I'm big on holding and our third pillar is accountability, because I'm big on holding the police accountable, but no, we need to hold these elected officials that we done elected accountable, and we need to hold each other accountable.
I think this is a good time to talk about what brought you spoke for. It's been a while since you kind of spoke, and you came back and spoke. What you come to speak on, and why did that light you up to do so?
Okay, so I would like to thank EJ for informing me that there was a vote coming up to reduce public comment yet again.
Yes.
So every year for the past couple of years since we've had Mattie elected.
I think.
Who got elected in 2021, Ann?
Not me.
So, that's hilarious.
Or anyone else that could have done a good job.
Literally, since 2021, we have continuously had our voices silenced. So, EJ informed me what was happening. He sent the link. It was like a Saturday. He's like, hey, a few of us are going to go speak. Oh, this will be a great debut. So I got my speech ready. I was excited. I was on time, which is something I struggle with.
I do want to say, I think that was the calmest I've seen you in a long time.
ever,
yeah.
ever addressing elected. Yeah. So that's what I felt. I was so calm, like I was calm, cool, and collected. I sat by Miss Tackett, like I've been loving her speech. I text EJ, where you at? Because I'm on time. He was late.
Yeah, you know? Exactly. Yeah, you beat me.
Literally. So when she called my name, like I'm okay, let's go. So I wrote my speech. I went.
It's a great speech.
Thank you. I was very calm, and I even made a joke. I was in a good mood because in the beginning I said, "Hey, I'm back. You miss me?" Like that's me. Yeah. I'm like, like I know they don't miss me, but you know what I'm saying, like that's me making a joke. Ha ha, laugh. And so I do my speech, and as y'all saw at the end, I ad-libbed a little bit. Like if you think back to the civil rights era, like. A protest is meant, like we said, to make people uncomfortable. Like that is the part. Back in 2020, we protested. We had a kids protest for Tatiana at Betsy Price's house. Like we literally protested in front of Betsy Price's house. So
powerful.
Yes, very powerful, especially with kids out there.
Yeah.
So that's what it's meant. So when at the end of my speech, I ad-libbed, and context matters. I remember when Deborah Peoples and Mattie debated back in 2021. I remember Mattie telling Deborah that words matter. Words do matter. Mm-hmm. So it's a context. The context in which I was saying, hey, if you guys continue to limit our opportunity to address you in spaces like City Hall, designed for community members to address elected officials that they've elected, then we're going to be forced to come to other spaces where you may be that may not be designed to address you, but we want to get our message across. Like you're not going to silence us, you're going to hear us.
Yeah.
And as I was leaving, y'all's mayor.
Yeah. Patrice, I still have your casket. And people have been asking us, what does that mean?
I took it as if someone tells you I still have your casket, what would you take that as? I take that as nothing other than a threat. Mm-hmm. Like I literally had friends of mine that grew up in the streets calling me like, "Hey, I heard that comment. What does she mean? That sounds like she's saying I put 50,000 on your head."
Correct.
If you,
yeah.
That's literally the concept. Yeah, like that's literally. So I'm like, what? Like what is going on? Yeah. What immediately I'm like, I need to know, like, is that a threat? I also look at the political climate that we're in. So y'all, I'm really not like him, but I'm outspoken. Charlie Kirk was not an elected official. He was a activist, right? I am a activist, outspoken. Like, and we look at what happened with him. I took Mattie's comment as back in 2017 when Donald Trump told the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by.
Yeah.
Is that a political dog whistle? Are you trying to
correct
energize your base to attack me?
Correct.
Am I going to have to be scared?
Especially because we just had the Charlie Kirk rally here that was instigated by a little kerfuffle that she had with another councilwoman.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people who were sitting in that public comments, there was it wasn't a gasp, but we're like, what? Huh. What?
Everybody was like, what?
Everyone's head moved about a good 15, 20
they also
degrees.
always say that they're not going to respond to public comment, that they're just there to listen.
And that's the other part that messes.
So that replying back is something they constantly say they can't do.
Yeah. So clearly I struck a nerve, and that nerve caused her to. And I literally, if you look at me, I'm walking away, and I stop dead in my tracks, like. What did you just say?
Yeah. What? So now news have kind of reported on it and talked about an incident where the mayor, there's this casket on her lawn, and that was a big thing during all the time you were referencing back about with George Floyd and Tatiana Jefferson. Mm-hmm. Why is she called it feels like she says on the live TV segment that y'all had that she has a fact and that she has people who's given her the tip that you were involved. Yeah, and I think that's another concerning part to do all that. Very concerning.
So to be an attorney, the mayor of the 11th largest city, for you to accuse someone of something that you have no proof of, only hearsay, because that's all that's all that exists, because I didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
That is reckless at the least.
Yes.
Could we get some context on what Mattie thought she was saying? Like, what is the story she was referencing?
So the story Mattie is saying is that, during the Arendine trial, there was a silent protest that took place at Mattie's house in which a casket bearing the names of Fort Worth PD. So it's people that have been murdered, real life people who have been murdered by Fort Worth PD, names written on a casket, and that casket was placed in her yard. Now she was not. It was reported she was not home. So there's a photo that someone took, and I guess it was like her nanny or somebody maybe was there, but the casket was placed in her yard, and she took that.
Mayors don't make nanny money, by the way.
Not from that salary.
So that's a whole nother argument there.
Or babysitter, nanny. I don't know. Don't let me misquote. I don't want.
No.
I don't want to slander or lie on nobody, because that's not the energy I hold. I hate that elected officials are out here slandering and lying on me, because at the end of the day, like we spoke about, I am a real community leader. I have a real nonprofit. Slander and those type of falsehoods that are being spread on my name are not only damaging my reputation, but they has damaged and are damaging my nonprofit.
Yeah.
It's damaging my board members. It's damaging it's damaging the community I'm serving, because limiting our resources, limiting funding is not allowing us to serve the people of 76104 like I have been doing for almost 5 full years.
And that's the part that, I mean, like, we also have a history of white women targeting or blaming black people for something.
And it still comes to mind.
Exactly. And it's like, that's the part, it's like,
white women's tears have ended civilizations. White women's tears have caused so much pain on black and brown communities.
Yeah.
So for me to be the literal victim in this situation, and Mattie to get on the news and play victim, was just beyond me.
Yeah.
Mattie knew my comment was not a threat to her, but she knew her comment to me was a threat.
Mm-hmm.
In rap, it's called a double entendre.
Yeah.
Okay. So the meaning behind what she said, that was meant 2 ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that.
Mm-hmm.
So literally, I don't believe that people look at the magnitude. Like, I am a population of one of the most vulnerable people in this country.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at what's happening to black women everywhere under our current administration. 92% of black women voted against Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Since he's been elected, he has been gunning for black women.
Mm-hmm.
With her actions, and even what happened with Tina James at council a few weeks ago, another black woman being targeted by the what's his name, Carlos?
It's a news thing that we try not to talk about.
Yeah, I don't want to say it out loud.
We don't want to give them any elevation.
See, I'm not doing it. Yes. But she was another community leader, nonprofit, was just targeted. Then you backdoor, and then this happens with with me. It's a Jackie Craig, a Tatiana Jefferson. It's a pattern.
Yeah. So has there been any attempt to make amends meet? Like, where is it now?
I'm just waiting on the mayor to apologize.
Yeah. And I know a lot of organizations like the 817 Pod, Tarrant for Change, See It, Name It, Fight It, Community Frontline wrote a letter, United Fort Worth wrote a letter, Afro Community. So you now have a lot of support standing up about what's happening, and we're making some demands and requests.
And my support is coming from, some of the people I least expected. Like, and I'm so thankful for that, because everywhere I show up in all spaces, I show up genuine. I show up as, I'm not trying to be anyone else. I'm not trying to, one of my board members today she said, you have the power to make people feel seen. You have the power to make people feel heard and to bring people together. That is something I have always done. Like, I was hosting Thanksgiving holidays at my house at like 22 years old, cooking. I have always been that. I'm a family oriented person, and I'm a community oriented person. I know that, like Mattie made the comment, that she was being a protect when she felt that was a threat that I made. She was stepped into protector mode. Like, I don't have kids, but I feel wholeheartedly about the community how a mother probably feels about her kids, and wanting to protect the community because I see the bigger picture and I see what's happening. And right now, based on the current administration, everything that's going on, like, if we don't get activated and we don't mobilize and organize, like what I feel like we're doing a good job. If that doesn't happen, like, I don't know where Fort Worth is going to end. Like, as the largest Republican city, we haven't had a Democratic judge in 25 years. I mean, we can go on and on. What's happening at Commissioner's Court with Alyssa Simmons getting bullied.
Another black woman.
It's ironic, isn't it? Another black woman. Deborah Peoples being bullied when she ran for mayor. Her signs being torn down and graffiti on them, just all type of stuff, like, you know.
Well, now, so, you know, as we get to the end of the set, like the interview, what is your comments to people listening, even to people like myself that I feel like you started pouring into recently, and, you know, I think there's potential for us to kind of continue and amplify what was there back when you guys were doing all those things. What is your advice to us and people who are trying to re-engage Fort Worth? Any advice? Any thoughts?
I want to thank people that are trying to get involved and engage Fort Worth. It's been a lot of weight that a lot of us have shouldered for a long time. And I look up to people like Pamela Young and Dante Williams. I look up to those people who have been doing it for much more long. Daniel Rodriguez. I look up to people like that who, and the OGs, the Mary Ellen Hicks, you know what I'm saying? Like the people who have poured into me, and I want to be that person to those people. So I would love to, anybody that's watching this and you want to get involved. Patrice Jones can't do everything. I want to help to create 100 more Patrice Joneses right here in Fort Worth, Texas. Because that's what it's going to take to fight fascism, to fight white supremacy, to fight the Fort Worth way that has been ruling this city forever. So I would like to say, like, keep following, link up. I'm really, like I said, I'm activated. I call myself Big Auntie. Big Auntie is activated. So
and you can follow Big Auntie on all things. Find Big Auntie and you can find her.
I want to use my civic engagement part of my nonprofit as like a civics 101, collaborate with people like you guys, but get some type of curriculum and educate people, because again, when you know better, you do better. I don't believe it's that people don't care. I believe it's that people don't know.
And a lot of the things that we're doing, those things are being taken away. So in public school, they're not teaching that anymore, and they're putting everything on nonprofits. So your nonprofit is ahead of its time as far as wanting to tackle those things before we had them all start to be stripped away over time in the schools and all the different places.
And I just think it's important for people to also know, like, it's hard with the type of me being outspoken and me doing, I consider myself a revolutionary. Like, with me being this person, and although my intentions are great and I am trying to help, it hurts my nonprofit and things that I'm attached to, because the powers that be, they don't want to see that.
And I think that's why a lot of people stay silent, because their economic,
the money controls it.
Yep.
So, and that's why you have to be in a certain, I know for a fact there are people out here in nonprofits in Fort Worth and Black led that want to support me, but they can't. Like, they have to feed their families and they're afraid of the, what would happen, the backlash. And there is going to be backlash for sure. So, and that, you know, everyone can be as revolutionary. I get that, but everyone can play a role.
But I think
everyone can play a role.
You are a spectrum of that right now. I mean, you're doing things that are not things that rile people up, and you're doing things all the way to the more activist. And so you embody the whole spectrum of making change in the community. The building gardens in somebody's backyard is not a revolutionary thing. It's not something that anybody could point out and criticize in any way whatsoever. So I think, and teaching kids about civics and being involved and encouraging them to vote is not something that anyone should be able to point at.
And I think the people have been tired in Fort Worth because the representation that they've had ain't been represented. So literally, like, what is my motivation in electing someone when at the end of the day, they're not going to be the voice for the people that we need them to be.
Yep. So we joke about this. Like you guys used to, what's the joke you and Dante? Tell you, I was like, we thought you were gonna be MLK, and now you're trying to be Malcolm X or whatever.
Facts. When I first met EJ, I'm like, like literally, and then I started seeing like the mobilizing and him going to speak and the videos and the tactics and I see, Ann's been cool. You know what I'm saying? Like I literally, Wesley, if y'all know me, y'all know my special love for Wesley. I'm seeing it, and I'm like, oh shoot, they having a 5-year. Let me go tell them I'm proud of them. Let me shoot them a text. Like literally, like so. Like I said, it's gonna take all of us. But what you have done here, like it is inspiring. Like I one day hope to have a podcast where I can do this.
We're talking, yeah. And I brought that up not to hear great things about me, but it was more about. It was more. Sure? Yeah, no. It was more about like.
Doesn't need anybody to.
It was more about like I think in Fort Worth, we need more of what boldness looks like, and I think right now, if it was a Patrice,
literally,
so something's wrong, danger. If it's EJ now trying to be loud Malcolm Xy, what happened to EJ? Alex Montalvo gets this all the time.
Their name. Let me throw some salt on them. That's what they. But that's the oldest play in the book. Like what else? Like y'all, we know what happened. Like we know what goes on. So. Yeah, but if there's more of us, right?
Yeah,
they can't single us out.
Yeah.
So right now, I need y'all to get active.
Exactly.
So that
that's a great way to end
it. So they're not so focused on Patrice Jones. And if there's 30 more of us, or however many more, then it's like, oh wow, this is what the people really want. And we all have different networks. Like we all can reach different people. Y'all are reaching way different people than I probably will ever be able to reach. But if I do the same, a podcast, educating, doing all that, I'll reach people. So if enough of us are moving and shaking, man, like we are better together, y'all. And that's community, literally.
Well, there you guys have it. Another great episode with the 817 Pod. Patrice, one of my favorite people. Thank you for everything you do for us. And we look forward to support you. We have an action letter out to support. So please sign the letter. The letter plays for 2 parts. It plays 1 to say, hey, like Mayor, we demand an apology for Patrice. 2, it also plays that we demand also having public comments back to their original spots so that we actually have enough time to speak. And so, yes, see that in a link and see those things
and you guys please go to my website, Southside F as in Frank, W as in William, or F as in Ford, W as in Worth, .org, and donate, sign up. We'll have probably another revitalization day, but I would love to hear from you guys. Sign up. We're going to start get a newsletter out, and follow us on the socials. EJ, he been tagging me in posts, and I'm thankful to be here. Thank you to Ann for sending the bathroom code. Earlier we were at our revitalization day, and Ann office is out of the space that we've historically used, and she sent the bathroom code, no problem. That's building community. That's the type of stuff that we need to be doing. So, and shout out to Texas Health Resources for making it happen today, making our revitalization day happen. And I'm just like, I'm thankful, and I'm really looking forward to seeing a change in Fort Worth. And I really believe, you guys, that we have the power and the momentum and everything to do that. And we about to flip it, y'all. It's about to happen. All right, let's go.
There you go.
Hell yeah.
So that was a really excellent interview that we had with Patrice Jones, who has so many roles in our community, and we've crossed paths with her in many of those instances. And unfortunate that this is what brought her onto the pod. We probably should have had her on before now, because of all the great work that she has been doing. But touching on that subject of public engagement and the opportunity to be engaged in our community, I think we're in a time where it's really necessary, and we all on the pod have been working so hard to try to encourage people to be engaged in their community. And I think anything that occurs that can kind of re-engage people and spark them to want to find a role and a place to have their voices heard is really, really important. And I think that is something that we touched on today with Patrice.
I do just want to add, I am a proud member of the Patrice fan club. Like,
100%.
She is so cool. So I first met her during the George Floyd protests. I was filming the Tatiana mural as it was being done. We did Leading Edge together. Wow. And then we served on the board of Steer Fort Worth together, where I went to bat for her constantly, because she is such a perfect example of what bold leadership means and what 100%. Like being a community leader is. Like, her phone's blowing up constantly because when someone in her community needs like a big important ask, they know first call is Patrice.
Yeah.
It was so funny with Steer events how many times we needed to like invite politicians. She's like, I got all their numbers in my phone. Here we go.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, that's super like great that she has a lot of obviously nice things to say about you as well.
She's great. Big fan.
Yeah, I think she's a big fan of yours as well.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask Patrice but wasn't able to just due to time was like, what was public comments like back then with George Floyd and, you know, hundreds of people trying to get the police oversight stuff happening? And you were on council, right?
Yeah. So I was actually out of town for this last council meeting where this all kind of blew up. But I do have very strong feelings about public comment, because back in the day, before this kind of reduction started, and I think there was a post on social media today actually showing a bar graph that shows that reduction. I have been sharing with people from the very beginning of these reductions that this should not be the direction that they're going. It is uncomfortable often to sit up there and listen to people who are unhappy about things. And some of those topics that we were listening to back then were about life and death of people who had been, you know, murdered by police officers. And this was not, you know, there was no limit then. You could sign up at any city council meeting for public comment and talk on any subject that you had a passion to be heard about. And you'd get your 3 minutes. They weren't reducing the amount of time based on the number of people that signed up. I think people really fully got their 3 minutes. At one point, we did reduce the number that you got, the 10 minutes to 6 minutes when you were speaking for a group.
Yeah.
But even that I thought was problematic and that we shouldn't be doing that. So to your point, there were hundreds of people signing up and we were staying until the wee hours of the morning to hear. And
yeah, because it was always at the end of a meeting. So you'd have like
anybody who signed up to speak had to sit through whatever business was happening in the meeting, and you never knew for sure how long that was going to take, and then listen to whatever anybody had signed up to speak about. And I did watch Tuesday's meeting when they were, you know, this snuck up on us a little bit. We've been talking about the fact that we wanted to encourage the council to go back to allowing public comment at all meetings or at more meetings than they were.
And add the virtual option back.
That, and also just having standalone public comment meetings where we have done the research to show that not everybody's attending them on a regular basis. They fall out of quorum sometimes. They reduce the time because they think they're going to fall out of quorum. So all of that just really puts a spotlight and makes it look like there's not a whole lot of care to hear from the public. And, you know, I'll be the first to admit that there's sometimes people coming down there talking about some stuff that seems a little off the wall. But as I've said to my husband, you know, even a broken clock is right twice a day. And sometimes even people who have showed up and, you know, are just drilling it down on a thing that they feel very passionately about that maybe isn't even in the purview of the city. They sometimes will say something that's important. So I made a point of making sure that I was listening. And, you know, people have pointed out that not all the council members are listening. They're on their phones. They're looking down. And I really was intentional about making sure I was listening. And I think Councilwoman Beck made a comment in the meeting on Tuesday about it's not any skin off our nose. I don't know if she used that term, but it's not hard for us to be here for another 30 minutes.
3 minutes at a time. Yeah.
And then another council member said, I don't see anybody banging down our door with hundreds of people coming to speak to us, and therefore we don't need to have additional meetings. That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard.
Yeah. Well, it's a right of democracy to be able to voice your opinion to your government.
Right. And then to say, talk to us in the hallway or talk to us at this meeting or that meeting. I thought some of the most powerful points were, this is our opportunity to have you hear, all of you, hear from us individually.
Where they have to listen. Because, like, you could write in your comment. There's no guarantee that they'll read it.
Right.
But when they have to sit there while you're speaking...
And just going
odds
to
are
a
they're listening.
public meeting that one council member is having in their community is not speaking to all of the council members, and it's not speaking to the mayor and all the council members. So I think that point, and then the other point,
because a lot of the
being
issues affect the
Tuesdays,
entire city.
That whole thing about Tuesdays and all the things that people have
That's
to
so true.
choose.
I've never been to a Fort Worth ISD meeting because I'm at city
It's
council.
Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And then the commissioner's court meets on Tuesdays during the day, and sometimes the city council meeting is during the day. I ran from commissioner's court to city council in one day.
Looking at this graph that you talk about, you know, we had 29 like public opportunities in 2021 because they didn't change it until halfway in. But then in 2022, there was 21 public comment meetings where, kind of like you said, it was just like the public gets their time. But then the other meetings were another 21 where they kind of had an agenda and, you know, things they were voting on. And it sounds like what I'm seeing from these graphs is that now we went from 21 in 2022 to in 2026 a maximum of 10, because it's not like
You're
We're not guaranteed.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
something could come up if they don't have a quorum or if there's a conflict and they decide to cancel one.
Yeah.
Because I think that might be part of their argument for why they're going down to 10. Because, we looked more closely at the calendar and we see that it conflicts with a majority of us being out of town for National League of Cities or something like that.
But you know what day they will be in? Council meetings where they have to vote on stuff.
Exactly.
Exactly. And so I guess what I'm trying to ask you is like, what was, because you were on council in 2021?
Yeah.
So like, what's
until the elections.
Yeah. But what was the narrative? Like, what's the reason of the split? Why now? Like, what was that? What was the debate?
I mean, I wasn't on the council when they reduced it in 2021. I was there before when we had it. So the reduction happened when the new council came in 2021. And
a lot of people didn't know what happened in the past because there was a lot of new people.
Yeah, It was a whole brand new council. I will say that they did make a large kind of production about, there had been a vote on whether to pay council members and the mayor more, and that had failed. Twice that has failed. And so there was quite a bit of consternation and discussion about the fact that this was a new council with many younger people who had jobs outside of serving on council, whereas several council members before had been retired, older people with retirement and who could put the time in without worrying about the impact on a paying job. And then the other thing is that between all of them, they had a whole bunch of kids, a lot of young kids that they were all parenting as well. And so I got the message of, we're not going to be in all the places and doing all the things that previous councils might have done. I think that's fine to not go to all the ribbon cuttings and all the fancy chicken dinners, but to cut back the amount of time that you spend at an actual city council meeting, I don't think.
To cut back the hours of your actual job
of being a council member.
And I think we all probably would agree that we are pro raising city council salaries to a livable, lively wage so that you could do the job in its totality.
Yep.
And
more people would be able to do the job and not have to make such a sacrifice or not be able to make the sacrifice.
Yeah.
And so I was even considering adding that at the end of my comments of like, to end on some good news, if y'all want to have an effective salary so you can keep public comments, I'm in alignment with doing that, you know? So, and that's the part where going back to how they talk about Bob Willoughby or all what Bob does is a lot of their comments after the public comment was like, man, we get people yelling at us, and Bob was yelling at them.
That's what he does every time.
Yeah. But my argument to the Bob thing is whatever Bob has said has never been as bad as what Beau French says.
Yes.
So
very true.
And you all allow that behavior to happen in your lives all the time. And that is where I'm like, and also Bob said a lot of different things as a older white guy that was not as cordial and nice and calm as Patrice. And so that was also, I just think, and I think Bob, what they don't understand why they benefit from Bob Willoughby's remarks is that now people like us who are just other concerning residents who are trying to maybe not be as disrespectful. Like he just comes off and slanders a lot of the time. Like it's now people are saying that, oh, you guys are going to be shaped and look like Bob, and I think that gives them a chance to stigmatize public comments, which is why more people doesn't do it, because it's fringe behavior. And I think because we're showing up more together, I feel like it's too convenient, and I'm willing to say out on a limb that they reduce it to 10 because of what's been happening over the last 6 months. When you talk about viral content being created against the mayor, when you talk about 60 plus people showing up to DEI, how can now public comments start being more engaged you consider to reduce, right? To me, those are things that, like, this is a direct, I feel, action to people now mobilizing using their tools against the system, and the establishment is like, okay, well, we'll close that tap on the people who are trying to use public comments to keep us accountable.
Well, and to dismiss public comment as a time when nobody's coming up with solutions, that was another thing that a council member said. I don't hear a lot of solutions coming out of this, and we can't talk back and forth at public comment, but you can find solutions for people when they come and speak to you at public comment. You can point to a staff person who's responsible for whatever it is that person is bringing up and say, you can talk to that person, and you can have conversations after the meeting. But to just say, I don't hear solutions coming out of people coming to public comment, and then we're just doing this for viral clicks, or we're just doing this to be annoying, I think, to your point, is trying to be dismissive of people who are using a tool that we all should have access to in order to communicate with the people that represent us.
That pisses me off, because the first time I ever signed up to speak at City Council was me bringing a solution. They were wanting to do a no cruising ordinance in West 7th. And I was like, look at what Deep Ellum had the same problem. Let's look at what they did. And I went and I took pictures. I had a whole PowerPoint presentation. I was showing them, like, transit is a good solution for what you claim to be the problem. And they removed it from the agenda that morning, where no one was allowed to speak. And at the time, what normally would happen is you'd get moved from the agenda item to public comment. Well, no, I was there to speak with a bunch of black and brown people. None of them were allowed to speak during public comment. I was the only one. So I spent my time talking about how what they did was shitty, and they took away people's right to vote, or right to speak, and that we're bringing solutions. We have ideas that might benefit you. Why are you doing this? Why are you and then it was after that it was never moved to public comment again. Like, that if it was taken off the agenda, you just weren't allowed to talk at all.
And I don't even know who makes those decisions, because I know that you had mentioned before, when you signed up for public comment, sometimes people reach out to you and ask you a question about what you're signing up to speak about. And I think that was them proactively trying to find solutions for people and maybe reduce conflict at a meeting where they can't answer you.
That was the same meeting where the cops called me to be like, what were you going to say? I'm like,
I think they're responsible for the no cruising stuff. So yeah, that was their IR or whatever.
Weird way to go about it.
Yeah.
Well, I believe we're going to have the calendar for you so that you know those 10. Mm-hmm. I think what we have to do, the calendar is there. We only have 10 precious moments to make an impression on that dais. Save them in your calendar now.
Yep.
Treat it like another gather stop, right? And once a month, or the 10, try to make as many of them as possible. Mm-hmm. And even if we don't have something that we need to advocate for, like Patrice or like public comments,
I'm sure there's things people are mad about.
Yeah,
You'll think
I'm
of
sure
something.
you can find individual things. And hey, bring your solutions. And talk about your solutions and ideas of what kind of Fort Worth you want to build.
And then to the points we made about a lot of people not showing up for the public meetings on the budget and the public meetings on the bond that hopefully we will be scheduled at some point. We're still waiting for the meetings that are supposed to be scheduled sometime between August and October, and we're getting pretty far into October. Mm-hmm. But those are other opportunities to show up and say things. And I think we're just going to have to find, those are public meetings where staff are there to answer questions, and
you're not limited on time then.
Yes. Yeah. Well, sometimes they do.
Yeah.
Well,
if they let go of the microphone, sometimes it's a little out of control. But
well, this just occurred to me, and I want to help put this in context, is you're only allowed 3 minutes to talk. They're only having 10 meetings. In the entire year, the maximum opportunity is 30 minutes that you're going to have to voice your thoughts and opinions to our government about how you want them to run things. That's insane.
Yeah, that's a great context. And again, use those 30 minutes because this is a direct attack on everything we've been talking about on the podcast, the community and organizing we've all been doing as people.
It's an attack on democracy.
Exactly. So I don't care what you think, how to do it, who's right, who's wrong. I think we all can agree democracy is important. So everyone, I feel like we should be activating around this concept. And so October 14th is the next public comments at 6 p.m. at City Hall. And so I think this is also a good time for this being a rational reason for you to come out and advocate for democracy.
So getting back a little bit more to our roots of things that we often talk about on the podcast, but sometimes have gotten away from because of urgent things that have come up. We have some growth and development type stories that were in the news this week. There's a Fort Worth Report article entitled "As Fort Worth Grows, Why is Density Such a Hard Sell?" And there was another article about Trinity Metro approving their $222 million budget and laying out how the money is going to be spent. And then there was also an article about billions in road projects that were aiming to ease Fort Worth's traffic congestion. Well, I did appreciate that they did have a bit of a focus in that article on public transportation being an option, because basically it is the only option to ease congestion, because building more roads and widening roads, as we have said numerous times, is not going to do that. So I was appreciative of that. But to the Fort Worth growth and why is density such a hard sell, I am quoted in that article. I had a lengthy conversation with the author, and I think that these are important conversations that are happening in our community. And Fort Worth Report is doing an excellent job right now of highlighting some of these things. They've had several articles talking about different ways that the impact of growth, and we've all just been wringing our hands and talking about how fast we're growing without a whole lot of intentionality of how do we address that other than just being responsive to it after the fact when it's a problem.
Everybody loves to brag about growth, but hates to plan for it.
Yep. And then just doesn't want to pay for the things that would make it easier because they say, oh, we're subsidizing this, that, and the other thing. So I think there's some comments in there just about like adaptive reuse in the core of the city, and how when you do that on infrastructure that may need to be repaired and replaced and updated because of age, it's still a better return on investment than
building
sprawl
from scratch.
Yeah, and building new things out in the hinterlands where they don't have access to many of the things that already exist in the core of the city. So I think that was a really good, and the Fort Worth Report, for anybody who's interested in participating, is having a community conversation about
it's
growth.
Different. It's a growth summit. They're making a way bigger deal out of it than their
Not
normal.
just one panel early in the morning. I think it's like a half day situation with several panels speaking on all of that. So, and I think all these articles that they've been writing have been leading up to this growth summit. And then the other thing I brought up in the article was that the city is looking at hiring a chief planning officer, which I hope will get us back to being a little more proactive in our planning going forward.
And they don't already
have a chief planning officer?
Yeah.
Oh, Wesley, you know about the fact that we combined planning and development together and then kind of went down the path of basically focusing on just development and not being very proactive.
But are we saying, did they hire someone?
They haven't yet.
Well, but like, how are you the 11th largest city, one of the fastest growing cities in the country for basically my entire life, and you don't have anyone in charge of like keeping an eye on that, planning for the future?
I think that the idea was that they would have planning in the various different departments, and then the Fort Worth lab was going to be a combination of budget and planning. And then I think it ended up being very budget heavy without a lot of the planning side. And I think this is a course correction in that, because many of us had brought to the attention of the city that we needed to be a little bit more intentional about the planning side of things.
Absolutely.
I would love to get granular on this from a case study of the story also brought up Woodhaven.
Right.
What's your overall take of what you saw with the Woodhaven? Obviously, I was on the commission, but from a lens of someone who deeply cares about how those things kind of move, what was kind of your thoughts? Because I think that's a great example of growth. This is a discussion of growth. This was an inner loop. We're trying to build density. But there were some people who didn't want that and were concerned about their home values.
Yep.
So, yeah, I guess kind of what would be your overall analysis?
I think that the reason that this article, I think, was brought up to begin with is just that the city of Fort Worth and the outspoken people in Fort Worth have been quick to be concerned about anything changing in their neighborhoods. They often
in a NIMBY way or a gentrification way.
A little bit of both, probably, but different audiences.
Yeah.
There's some that are doing it in more of a NIMBY way, and then there's some who are concerned about displacement from gentrification and want to make sure that whatever it does come is for the people that are already there and not just for somebody coming in and gaining wealth from it. But because both of those things exist, when there is a situation like redeveloping a golf course, which we had the same thing. There was some concern about redeveloping another golf course for a whiskey distillery back in the day. And that neighborhood was very concerned about what the impacts of that was going to be on their property values and their area. But these are conversations we need to be willing to have, because nothing is forever and change does occur. And people are concerned, reasonably so, because often, especially when you think your home values are going to be negatively impacted, if that's the biggest investment that you have, you don't want it to be negatively impacted. In the case of Woodhaven, I had been following it from the beginning because I was interested in it as a nerdy planner. And I know some of the folks that were moving forward with this development. And so it's an interesting case study in that I've seen adaptively reused churches where they're in the middle of a neighborhood. People only saw them being busy on a Sunday with traffic. The rest of the time it sits there empty. Schools are kind of the same way. People are used to them being there and being, moving in a certain way. Woodhaven is complicated because it has a storied history of very negative outcomes of multifamily that was developed in a time when it wasn't intentional. It didn't have a mix of uses. It was standalone multifamily units without resources around it. And then it went through, recession, and none of those apartments were updated or improved. New things were built other places, and that area was kind of neglected. And so if this development comes in and has a mix of density from single family, very large lots, because there is some of that, all the way to townhouses and fourplexes and then up to multifamily, if you have in your mind that it's going to be another Woodhaven from the past, that would be something that people would be very concerned about, and with reason, because they have that lived experience. It was not a good experience. I think that the golf course is not likely to come back. I think that's something that is more and more challenging. And I think with intentionality of a mix of uses that are for the whole community, it can be a positive thing. I think that the negative impact on property values of having a defunct clubhouse and overgrown, rat infested or whatever was going on, dumping, and people who were experiencing homelessness, setting up camp and things like that, is going to be much more negatively impactful to property values of adjacent properties or homes than adaptive reuse and redevelopment of an area. Yeah. But I can totally understand people being concerned, but I think that takes us back to having opportunity for community to be a part of the process and to be heard. And I think in that instance, having attended several of the public meetings that were held to get input from the community about what they would like to see, and very intentionally vetting through who's going to be doing the vertical development, that can be a good thing in the long run. Yep. And it can be an instance where community had a large say in what they wanted to see in the future.
Yep.
I'm curious, have they talked about how much green space that would ideally be preserved with the development?
Yeah, I think to your point about not knowing exactly what's going to be there, because they have a PD, and depending on which developers buy what parts of it and do the actual vertical development, there's some flexibility there, but they have to come in and do a site plan that will then lay that all out in detail.
Brings community engagement again.
It goes back through the zoning commission. It goes back to the city council.
But are they required to preserve any amount of green space?
Yeah, they have agreed to limit themselves on certain things, to provide extensive buffers between them.
200 feet.
200 feet, and they've limited themselves to 2 stories in height. Yeah. Which it needs to be clearly understood that your next door neighbor could tear down their house and build a 3-story single family home next door to you by right, because single family zoning allows up to 3 stories. So I think that there was some intentionality with that. I think that came from the feedback that was given during those public meetings.
I mean, I think being a part of that experience, that conversation as well, is just there is the concerns of developers, but then you also, like you said, there are also concerns of the mindsets of how residents look at how do you grow a city.
Yeah.
And that's right, like you said, right there in personal. The people who are coming are the people who are very focused on their needs, what they need, and it's probably one of the least we over me energies when you see people come in and it's all about me, and it's about how it's going to impact me. I'm concerned about this. And how do you think about the full community? Because Woodhaven's in a district that has majority renters, right? It's this was an area that was being impacted with, nice homes potentially. And yet there's a lot of people in District 5 that are displaced or the household income's very low. So I think that was such a experience to see so much passion to fight for the needs of a affluent area at the same time of a crisis of everything that's going around that district that's also happening, like crime or other incidents happening to young people in the same area, a very diverse district. To see the advocacy that came around for this made me like, man, where would that energy be for so many important things in the community, like affordable housing, like affordable daycare, like immigration reform, or people feeling safe in their homes, the homeless population in District 5, and how so little of activation happens in such a way for when, holy smokes, there might be some houses near my house. And that's the toughest part to navigate and watch, I think, from a lens of
and often the criticism is, this wouldn't happen in this neighborhood, or this wouldn't happen. You wouldn't welcome this in your neighborhood. And it's interesting because where I live, which is a neighborhood that's often called out as a place where this wouldn't be allowed to happen, there is affordable apartments that have been there forever, and people don't really know that that's what they are. Yeah. There's a grocery store and a hardware store in a shopping center that's in the middle of a neighborhood surrounded by single family that people have explored the idea of bringing additional housing there or bringing additional development there, and have gotten very much a pushback of, we don't want to see anything change. But in order for something to not just continue to go down, sometimes a look at what is the next iteration, the next life, the next thing that's going to bring community together is something that we should be willing to at least talk about. And that's the stuff that energizes me to do the work that we do at Community Design Fort Worth every day. Is people being that passionate about what they would like to see in their neighborhood, and hopefully come together about what they would like to see, and not always be battling against what they fear is going to happen, and sometimes is not the case. Patrice mentioned that her grandmother, I think, lived in the public housing that was in downtown Fort Worth. And when that was removed, they moved people who lived in that area to Stonegate. And there was a huge outcry that this was going to be a terrible thing, that it was going to bring crime and all of the things. None of that happened. None of that happened. But I think a council district boundary was moved after that in redistricting in order to not have to face upsetness that occurred from folks that were opposed to that.
Yeah. Well, I know a part of density and growth and a growing community is short story number 3 is about what's going on in the downtown library. I saw in the Discord, which everyone needs to answer, Wesley says he could talk about this forever. Unfortunately, you don't have forever. But Wesley, bring us in. What we have here.
Yeah. So the city was doing some meetings to get feedback on what they wanted with the downtown library, and I attended one, and I also invited them to State of the Arts to get more feedback from people because was not well attended.
That's such a struggle. Yeah. We've got to figure out how to get people to want to attend.
Well, they had 800 plus comments or about ideas.
Yeah, they had surveys.
The articles.
Yes, but the survey was not a very good tool for getting useful feedback.
Yeah.
And you also did the survey with no context. So I went to one of the meetings, and there was some context. But what was more helpful for me in particular is that Arts Fort Worth was having a board meeting in that building. And so afterwards, I just toured the whole thing up and down. And it was fascinating to see what is already there and like what's available. And almost none of that was presented in those meetings because, it used to be the Center for Transforming Lives building, and the basement is a full-blown daycare. And I'm like, why didn't they mention that? This is ready to go as a children's library. And the second floor has one of the most beautiful ballrooms in Fort Worth. And I'm like, they barely touched on that. This could
That was the very first candidates panel I ever was on that stage.
Wow. I was like, this could be such an incredible performing arts venue in Fort Worth that we're like desperately lacking. Barely touched on that. And then the top 3 floors need a lot of repairs. And one thing that was weird in that presentation is that they said that the idea of libraries being a warehouse for books is not a thing anymore. No one wants that. And I'm like, right here. I loved the old downtown library. It was 2 whole city blocks. It was 150,000 square feet where you could just peruse the aisles and find the perfect book for you. Our new downtown library is, I think, 35,000 feet. We're going from 2 city blocks to now a quarter of a city block. And all of the things that they were asking for feedback on, there's straight up not enough room in that building for even 10% of it to happen in there. So I was disappointed with the process and the fact that I felt like I was the only one saying all of it. All the things you're asking for, we should have all of it. And there weren't books anywhere. I mean, maybe you could say the local history section would have books, but other than that, there were no books as an option. And so I'm just really disappointed with the fact that how are we a city this big without a central library? A downtown library is great, but they're treating it as if it's just
another branch,
just a small branch. And I'm like, no, we should have a palace of books that we can all be proud of.
Well, I just got back from Seattle where their library is an architectural marvel.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's gigantic. It's modern and new and glass and all of that. And then I just came back from Santa Barbara where their downtown library has been under construction for literally the last 4 or 5 times I've been out to visit my dad. But it is a gorgeous, beautiful, historic building and has all the books and reading room and all of the things. And Santa Barbara is definitely not anywhere near as big as Fort Worth.
Well, I did want to add, so they said that they weren't going to put books in the downtown library because that's an outdated idea. Later, I found out that the real reason is because the building structurally cannot support the weight of books. I'm like, why didn't you tell me that? I'm way less mad about that. Like my dream, they recently put out their findings on what the community says that they want in the building. And I was glad to see that a lot of it mentions this will be a third space. This will be like, that is the main function of it, is that this is a community gathering space. And I'm like, great, we need more of those. But also we need books.
Well, I think they have access because you could check something out and then have it brought there probably. Because don't they do that with the other branches?
Yes, they brought that up in the meeting. And I'm like, I used to go to the library so much more when I could go to the downtown library and get everything I need in one stop. Because when I try and get books that I need from all the different libraries, it's a hassle for me. It's a hassle for every librarian who's having to do that. I want one big place with books. My hope is that, yes, we do some adaptive reuse of that beautiful historic building. We make it a community gathering space. But it's a quarter of a city block. The rest of that block, you know what it is? Parking, yes.
And to my point, I'm afraid that everybody will be like, well, it has to have a big sea of surface parking or nobody's going to go there.
Yeah, that was one of the top 3 things they said that people wanted was free parking. And I'm like, it's downtown. There's a church parking lot across the street.
There's
like,
no
just
such thing as
use
free parking.
that. Exactly. Someone's always paying. My dream is that we take the other 3/4 of that city block and make that a big building full of books that we can all be proud of.
I feel like I dream about like all the rules and DEI stuff, or like all the stuff like you dream about, like architect and stuff. Because I get always get told, oh, the rules don't work like that, EJ. State statutes. I'm like, but we
made the rules. We can change them.
We can change the rules. It's like I say something about airports can't happen. You talk about libraries. Oh, that's beautiful.
Well, other people have done it. We can point to places where it's been done. Like the differentiation between a historic building and new construction right together so that it's juxtaposed and it's not trying to look fake like the old library was fake old. There was nothing historic about that building.
Everything
they
was
just
in the
put
basement.
a big shell over the top of it that was made people think it was old. So then when they said they were going to tear it down, everybody lost their minds. So I think that idea that you have of doing something around it that's ultra modern even to completely juxtapose with the beautiful historic building that's there.
Some gardening, some landscapes.
Yeah, rooftop garden.
Yeah.
There's so many things that we can do, but it's just so like exhausting to me that the city sold the downtown Central Library without any plan of what the next stage of this would be. Like everyone keeps settling for scraps. Well, and we deserve a city we can be proud of.
And better.
And by the way, that scraps we're talking leadership. Everyone is picking scraps.
Yep.
And that's why it's so important for us to activate. To be fair, on my Libby, I do have a book written out, for my Libby app.
Good.
Yeah.
Which is How Propaganda Works by Jason Stanley. Just let y'all know.
You're preparing.
So, alrighty, well, let's go ahead and move into wins, losses, and actions. We see there's a couple wins. Some of us were able to make it out to events. My win was the Hamrambee Fest. I feel like my loss about it is that, man, it is such an awesome event. More people need to attend. I think there needs to be some sponsorships and some ports to really elevate the event because it's such an incredible experience, especially if you're a Fort Worthian.
Tell us, what is the event? What'd you like about it?
Yeah, I mean, it was the music. It was a live entertainment. It was a big community kickback, and I think that it was how authentic and natural, and it was just beautiful to be in a space that you can tell is a community of Fort Worth that has been silenced, oppressed, not elevated, but they still have joy and they still dance and they still have a good time. And it made me, as someone who lives in Fort Worth since 2017, man, this is the things that Therese was talking about. When we talk about Opoli, when we talk about communities, that was the part that I was like, man, it was just so much Black joy that I was just excited to, like, holy smokes, this is awesome. And I mean, we in the bands were just incredible. So I was like, man, I had so much fun. And then food was there. The food was delicious. I had a Philly cheesesteak. It was all good. It was a great time. And so I'm definitely excited that I went.
Yeah.
But you also went to an innovative new event.
I went to the Kel-So Pride, which was the very first Pride event in Keller, South Lake. And so I wasn't in Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And it's really further away than I realized.
The only reason I didn't go, because I was at Hamrambee, I was like, Bon, you want to go to this? And let me see how far it is. 38 minutes.
Yes. And I even made it longer because I avoided highways.
Yeah.
Which felt much safer to me, but it took a while to get there.
And Kel-So is Keller South Lake.
Yes.
Yeah. And so why that was also important was obviously South Lake is a hyper, Tim O'Hare incubator. And so a lot of those people were really
they were hating on it. They put out public letters telling people that it was not going to be a family-friendly event. I can tell you, as someone who was there, it was a completely family-friendly event. There were families there. There were children there. There was nothing that these people were warning was going to happen. There were some protesters there, but they were so few. And by the time I came back around on the shuttle from the parking, they were petering out, and then they were gone.
So you're saying the only thing that made it not a family-friendly event was the people saying it was a not family.
Yes, I would say that's exactly an apt description of that. That is totally true. So, I mean, for a first-time event, they handled everything incredibly well. They had people register. They were checking us in. There was security just in case. I mean, it was very good. And it was very spread out. They have a huge field. This church has a huge field. There were dozens and dozens and dozens of tents of different vendors and people supporting LGBTQ communities. And there was music.
And this is big. And that's big in when we talk about Tarrant County wants something new. Tarrant County, has goals of having more inclusive communities. And like that was a huge milestone.
Yep.
Just overall of a symbol of like, we want this kind of stuff. And it's not just in Fort Worth and Arlington. We want this everywhere. Yep. And that's huge.
I think that the couple that put it on grew up in that area, and they said there was never anything for them there and that they want to change that for people now because that was hard for them growing up there.
A constant theme is people deciding to do something, right? If it's Patrice with Community Gardens or putting up a Tatiana Jefferson mural, right? It just starts with one person asking, man, I wish we had blank.
Are we you could be the do person. Something again?
I was trying to do it without saying it. So, but let's go ahead and move into losses. I mean, I think a lot of the loss for me, if I was going to kind of say it, is like this whole Texas AG Paxton to investigate the TCU over Turning Point. I am like baffled by what I would call conservative institutions. Texas A&M, Texas Christian University, Fort Worth. How they're like, what's crazy is how their right-wing media, extreme right, is trying to attack them as like these crazy, progressive, mind-warping places. Like, to me, it's like if you were an establishment Republican player, you're getting eaten alive by caring about what these people think. When it's time to me, I just think like,
wait, you mean the leopards eat my face party ate someone's face?
Yes. Yes. And it's just like, it's just, to me, it's just crazy that anyone who's like A&M or TCU are like, not like, they're not your majority. Like, tell them to move on.
And in the TCU case, there's no there.
Yeah.
Like, there was no event scheduled. There was no event canceled.
Yes.
So there's no there.
Yep. I saw that post from TCU before I saw the news article. I was like, what is this about? And it's like, oh, just crazy Republicans making
crazy stuff.
Yep. Another article we saw from Fort Worth Report says, teachers' free speech rights tested as Texas investigates 351 complaints. So they kind of buried the headline there. What this is a bunch of crazy people trying to get teachers fired for things they may or may not have posted about Charlie Kirk online.
Yep.
When we're going through a crisis of a shortage of teachers because they're severely underfunded and overworked, now we're going to make their lives more miserable over nothing. I hate it.
I hate it.
And both of those parts are about this whole Charlie Kirk stuff. I mean, me and my wife went to Costco and there was an older lady wearing I am a Charlie Kirk sign. And I'm just like, it's the new fake commercials on TV. Like, I don't know what people are giving these people their money for, but you know, there's them talking about having a separate Super Bowl to Bad Bunny and with Christian artists and bringing out Christian artists at the same time as the Super Bowl. These people are like really pushing fringe behavior and just selling it. But I just think that like no one stands up to.
But there's nothing that says liberty like decreasing other people's liberty, which is literally what they're doing.
Yeah.
If you don't agree with us, then we want to
take away all your rights.
So I don't have anything against Cook children providing services to make people who have to go to a children's hospital, which would be a terrible experience to have, better. But I can't not call out the fact that we're going to spend $42 million on a parking garage at Cook Children's as being a loss, in my opinion. They've built a campus that's like a Disneyland. It's beautiful. And to have to put so much money in storing cars is just infuriating to me. We're about to extend TexRail to the hospital district, but these things are just not coming fast enough in order to alleviate the need of everyone to get to a place in their car and then need to have a place to store that car.
Yep.
So I'm not disparaging people needing to use cars to get people to hospitals. That's likely not something you're going to be able to do on a train.
Yeah.
But people who work in those hospitals could get there on a train. And if we can have them not have to store their cars, then the people who have to arrive by car would have a place to park.
Yep. Every time there's an article about how many millions of dollars are spending on parking garages, I throw it in the losses. But now I'm starting to think, if we added up Cook's Children's, JPS, Harris Methodist, like how many millions are they spending on parking garages versus how much is that train station going to cost? How much would a regular bus circulator cost? Yep. Like, it makes more sense and benefits more people to have
and
transit.
There's another $40 million garage being built less than, 2 miles away at A&M?
On the other side of 30.
Yep.
Yep.
So you're just pitting.
And we're probably building more of them in the stockyards.
Yeah.
All the places.
Everywhere people want to start and end, you have to have parking and it's just stupid because you can avoid all of that with good public transit.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move into actions. The first kind of action to be excited, we didn't get to talk about this, but James Talarico is coming to Fort Worth October 8th. And shout out to his team for being on the east side. It's going to be it's going to be in Lancaster. I was like, yo, because, I'm kind of been critical on the guy. But I'm like, all right.
Someone's listening.
Maybe he's listening to the pod because he put it he put it on the east side. So that's hella dope.
That's October 8th.
Yep. October 8th. The classic, most iconic event ever.
Yes.
ArtsGoggle.
Yeah. October 11th. It is the biggest day for local art in Fort Worth. I mark it on my calendar as soon as I know the date. It's the best.
I saw them asking for more volunteers, but it's so hard to volunteer when you want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I've volunteered a
10.
ton.
Yeah.
So if you have not volunteered, please sign up to volunteer.
Yes.
It's an amazing experience. And they do need a lot of volunteers to pull that thing off.
Yes.
Are they not a sophisticated, like they don't know enough rich people to just pay the people?
They don't have enough money to pay the people.
Well, I just didn't know because it's such a successful event at this point.
But they're not charging the artists anywhere near like what some events charge in order to have a budget to do that.
I just think it's such a big event now. Like, I just feel like, can some foundation
part of the event is the volunteering. I mean, when you are on the setup team, it's like you're a team with your barricade guy, and
you're in love with it though. You need thousands of you.
No, she is right. Like, that is the ideal way to spend ArtsGoggle is help set up in the morning. You get like a special T-shirt that only volunteers get.
Yeah.
You get a walkie-talkie.
Yeah, you get to meet.
Trying to sell it.
You get to meet the artists as they come.
I would rather have a margarita and look at art, but okay, I'm just saying.
Do that.
Well, every other year.
Yeah,
you can do it some years. And
that's true too. But also this year, I will be there with my giant puppets. We have, I think, 4 performances scheduled where we'll be parading up and down the street. We are still looking for volunteers. So anyone watching this, listening to it, if you want to, puppeteer a 12-foot cat, message me on. At Vision and Verve on Instagram, and we can get you set up.
Right,
it's paid too.
You make a great cat.
Hold on. Actually,
you can probably drink a margarita and be the cat.
They're just 30 minutes at a time.
Okay, I'll talk to you. Okay. But the other part is Tay Day is also on October 11th. Right. So we just talked about it, Tatiana Jefferson, and they are having their parade, Pull Up for Tay Parade, Saturday, October 11th at 11 a.m. So you can be at 3037 South Freeway. Near like you said, the Carr Jefferson Community Center. But they also have a community karaoke night
on the 10th.
On the 10th. So if you are going to ArtsGoggle, maybe show up and show out on 6 to 9 p.m. on the Friday before. And
a 5th annual gala on the 12th. They probably are selling tickets to that. So I don't know if that's something that's still available, but
exciting.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited for all those things happening on the 11th. And then you have on the 14th, public comment. So, we're going to out-celebrate community, build trust, and then we're going to act Pit Feet, October 14th, Save Our Democracy. We talked about that. October 18th, you heard our other guest that's coming up, No Kings Rally. So, that's October 18th. And we're learning that we're going to be emceeing in some capacity. So,
come out and see the 817 podcast.
Yeah, participating there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else that we miss?
That's a lot of stuff to do. That's a lot of fun actions.
Yeah.
So in connection to the No Kings rally that's on October 18th, we have a special episode that's going to air later this week. So you're listening to this episode on Monday, and we'll be dropping another episode on Wednesday where we have a couple of guests that talk about action in the community and specifically actions around No Kings.
Yeah, No Kings has turned into, it's a national thing, but we've had thousands of people come out to No Kings to show consistency, people-powered organizing, building muscle to get prepared to stop this authoritarian fascist regime. And No Kings is just such a consistent thing for all of us to practice and grow. And so that is a great story to learn about because you hear from people who've kind of been on the ground floor of that organizing and why we need more of us. Because what it was like, I think Sabrina says, it takes 3.5% of the people to stand up against a fascist regime. And she said last couple No Kings, we got the 2%, 2.5%. And so you can be that tipping point. It's all of us together moving in the same direction.
So we have gone back to our traditional way of doing our podcast
Feels
with
good.
a big story and an interview and touching on a bunch of stories that are across the spectrum of the things that we know you share with us are important to hear about on the 817 podcast. So I too am really glad to be here doing this work with you, EJ, and with you, Wesley. And we hope that you will like, tag, subscribe to our podcast so that it can be elevated throughout the community and you can share it with other folks who maybe haven't come across us yet.